Thank you. Nice introduction. I feel there is a pressure of being the last presenter for today, so I want to reverse the role a little bit, and I want to start with the question to the audience. So, as you already heard, I'm the ESL teacher in a high school, and my question is, why do we learn another language? Why to learn another language? Yes, ma'am?
Communicate better with others.
Okay, to communicate. Okay, very good. And then my next question is, why do we want to communicate? Job requirement. Okay, that's a good idea. Any other reasons why do we communicate? I hear something.
Leisure, for example, the kind of communication is a part of our life now.
Yes, and also because humans are the social creatures, right? And to be able to communicate is built in our system. And actually the ability to learn language is built in our brain as well. All right, so my presentation will be a little bit in connection to Yeva's presentation, those who heard her about speaking skills. I do want to, it doesn't move.
He needs that cuddle. So
Oh,
I will,
cuddling.
yeah, it's just, he wants attention. Try
Okay.
again. Please.
Okay, perfect. Yes. So during my presentation, I have a brief introduction into language, and then my goals, benefits, and some results. So as I agree with you guys, that communication is the reason why we learn another language. And why do we communicate? Is because we want to understand others, and we want others to understand us. All right, so guys, as we learn a language, there are different modes of communication. There's the receptive language, when we understand, when we listen, and when we understand when we read, but there is also a productive part of the language when we can produce when we speak, or we can explain ourselves when we write. So when speakers enter the school or enroll in school, the younger the speakers are, they come in with stronger communicative skills as listening and speaking. But when we enter and enroll in schools and we learn another language as older learners, we actually have stronger skills in reading and writing. So speaking and listening will be the least not as strong as other skills. So for example, can I go to the bathroom? That would be the least embarrassing mispronounced word that my learners will use. So definitely they're not looking for the bathroom, they're looking for the bathroom, right? But this is not the only word that they are scared to pronounce and not the only sound they are struggling with. There are a lot more situations, like they will avoid talking about their beautiful vacation at the beach, or they will avoid talking about their little puppy that they're raising, because they will be mispronouncing the words that will be very embarrassing to do it in front of the native speakers. All right, so my goal with the learners is to give them opportunity to have a voice, to also, as my personal passion, I want them to be prepared for public speaking. So I want them to be confident speakers, to have the voice, to be confident speakers. And as a part of my job, I need to prepare my students to pass a test. There is a English language proficiency test that every student in my program, which is ESL program, they need to take annually. And part of the test, so it tests 4 areas: speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And for speaking, they need to speak to the computer. And as it was presented by our administrators, the speaking portion of the test, no matter how advanced the student is in any other classes, has been producing low results. So I was specifically focused on speaking areas, specifically this past year. And I would like to share my excitement at the discovery I made with the application that I found very useful for my students and for me. And 82% of my students reported that they found the application helpful. So the application is within the Flipgrid. The Flipgrid was created by Microsoft and specifically for educators to create videos and audios as a creative responses to the topics. However, within that Flipgrid, which my students would always avoid making videos because other students can listen to it, they feel embarrassed, they will hide their face, they didn't want to record themselves. So I was lucky to discover within the Flipgrid that there is immersive reader feature, and within immersive feature, there is a reading coach feature. What a discovery. I was so excited about that. So guys, as you know, knowing another language is a great skill to have. For some people, they know language so they can comfortably travel around the world. They can appreciate and discover different cultures. They can participate in the conferences like this. Yes, but there is another group of students for whom learning another language is a critical necessity. They need the language to survive. They need the language to feel belonging, and they actually need the language to have self-esteem, that they're capable of doing things. So guys, when students start to learn language, there are two different types of languages actually they need to acquire. One is basic interpersonal skills. This is used in our daily life, asking for help, asking for directions, asking for permission. And there's also cognitive academic language proficiency, the language that we use in academic settings in the classroom. And each language actually requires different amount of time. Which one do you think we will acquire sooner, guys? Communication skills or academic skills? Which language do we acquire sooner? Academic or communication? Very good. Yes, you're correct. Communication skills. Thank you, Dr. Wong. It takes according to some researchers, it takes between 6 months to 2 years to acquire communication skills. However, guys, can you guess how long it takes to acquire academic language skills? How long did it take you to acquire academic language skills? Christoph, would you have a suggestion?
I have no idea, in fact. I'm just thinking how long it should be. Probably 3 times more than the basic ones.
Okay, so that would take like about
1.5.
3 years, 6 years. Yeah, you're very close. Yeah, so some research suggests it takes about 4 to 10 years to acquire academic language skills to be able to function comfortably in the academic environment. So guys, when I receive, and I work in a high school, when I receive newcomers, I feel a pressure to use my time effectively and efficiently because I don't have much time. I have only 4 years with them, and I need to support them to acquire basic communication skills. But at the same time, they do not have any forgiveness for being a newcomer. They have to perform in every academic class in the high school. So they don't have time to learn the skills and then perform. They have to learn and perform at the same time. So how do I do this? All right, here I just wanted to present 4 different student profiles. That could be general student profiles in my classroom. One is Fernando, who is recently arrived. He struggles with pronunciation and he is overwhelmed with the amount of new information in the new language. Another one could be Jonathan. He has been in the US schools for 2 years. He can actually read and listen and understand people, but he says that he doesn't speak as much because he's scared of his pronunciation, that he keeps mispronouncing the words. He has been in US schools for much longer, for about 8 years. He can read, he can speak, he can listen. However, he tends to misspell a lot of words when it's a spelling test, and he also very quiet spoken. Not an ideal student for me when it comes to the public speaking skills. And then there is Raul. He has been in US schools since kindergarten, so he is considered to be a long-term learner. He is a comfortable speaker, very comfortable speaker. He is a good proficient reader, but he also tends for some reason to misspell a lot of words. And when it came to practice and we came to a realization when he reads out loud, he doesn't pay attention to punctuation, so it could sound I'm so sorry. So he would blend in the conversation into one sentence while there should be punctuation. So for example, Olivia is talking necessary. Olivia is talking necessary. It doesn't make sense because the reader didn't pay attention to punctuation. It should have been Olivia is talking necessary. So, and that was the case with Raul. He would rush through reading. He wouldn't pay attention to punctuation. So I found that the application, the reading coach within flip.com was beneficial for all of these 4 types of students. So again, my goal was to improve their pronunciation, to make them become more confident speakers. And I also wanted to prepare them to speak on the speaking test, on English proficiency test. And many of the lower scores were explained for some students that first they feel uncomfortable speaking to the computer. They feel it's weird. They feel it's weird that there are other testers in the room and speak to the computer in their presence. Some of them didn't know what to say. Some of them didn't feel comfortable with their pronunciation. So with Reading Coach, I was able to actually target all these goals. As you see here, 2 representation, before and after. I started to use this application. So before, how to increase, again, guys, learning is doing. So you have to learn, you have to start walking if you want to learn to walk. You have to start talking if you want to learn to talk. So before I discovered this application, we tried taking turns reading out loud. We tried choral and echo reading. We tried to listen to the computer. I will say, okay, guys, paste this abstract to the Google Translate and click on the read button, the sound button, so you can hear the computer read it to you correctly and you can practice with it. However, there was no response how well you're reading, so there was no feedback. Then I was also encouraging my students to use voice typing in the Google documents when they can actually test how much the computer can understand what they're saying when they're speaking to the computer. And they also were encouraged to listen to my recordings on flip.com and record their videos. But then it would take a lot of time for me to listen to those videos, try to grade and try to provide the feedback. It was very lengthy. And after I started using Reading Coach, simultaneously, students were able to practice the reading out loud skills simultaneously. So instead of spending 30 minutes and giving 1 minute per student as before, now all students can practice for at least 15 minutes. And then they receive instant feedback on their results and they can listen in the program and they can practice again. And then the program gives them a suggestion of 5 words to practice to improve their results. And they will listen and practice for 5 words. They try to read again. And they also were encouraged to ask for help and provide help to others. And some of them actually started competing with each other, try to see who can read faster, who can read better. So all of this leads to many benefits from using this application. So time and embarrassment. Again, time, there was an increased time for practice for the students. There was the increased time for me to address difficulties to individual students. There was also the decreased time spent for me listening to recorded videos, trying to provide feedback and grade. Then embarrassment. Embarrassment is a big one. So before, students will feel embarrassed to read in front of other students because of their pronunciation. Now they feel less embarrassed to read it in front of the computer. Also, they didn't have to wait for their turn and listen to the incorrect pronunciation as before. Now they can be exposed to the correct pronunciation, which also impacts the fluency and reading comprehension later on. And they didn't have to feel embarrassed when the teacher had to provide the feedback on their results. They received the results individually on the screen, and they can only submit the results that they're comfortable with and they're happy with. And if they wanted to improve later on, they were allowed to do that at a later time as well. Next benefits. So built-in support. Reading coach actually is immersive reader. It allows to translate any text that I put in there into over 120 languages. And many of the words will come in with also visual representation. So even it will support the understanding just from visual built-in support. The reading coach allowed me to submit any text for them to practice. It could be alphabets, it could be just the letters, it could be just the numbers, it could be the formulas. Even if I put a date, for example, 6/20/2024, it will read as June 20, 2024. And for the learners of the language, it's important because not in every country, the date starts with the month. It actually starts with the day, then month, then year. And in the US, it starts with the month. So it's another practice in learning language. Also, the computer encouraged my students to speak louder and clearer, because if you mumble and if you speak too softly, the microphone cannot detect the voice. And that's what I keep telling my students. No matter how great your idea is, if nobody can hear it, nobody can hear it. So I found it very helpful for my goal to make them into confident speakers. And here's the immediate result. As soon as they're done with the practicing, usually it's within a minute. I do not make a text longer than a minute long for you to comfortably read it. You get the accuracy results. So your accuracy, time spent reading, and correct words per minute, and always no more than 5 words for correction for additional practice. And they can do it again, again, and again. No limitations. Another benefit is that it is provided for repeated exposure. So first, I made sure that my students would read any informational text I wanted them to read. And then they exposed to correct pronunciation, because when they listen, they hear it correctly. Also, they exposed to the words. And you know, guys, in order to learn the words, in order to develop your vocabulary and adopt the new words as your vocabulary, you need to have at least about 8 to 12 exposures. And that one program actually allowed several. You listen, you read as you see, you pronounce as you practice, and you practice again and again. So it's multiple exposures at the same time, which was great. And then results. Well, as the results of using this application, Fernando, Jonathan, and Yasir reported that they became more confident speakers and presenters. Also, students reported they become more sociable. I guess maybe because they feel more confident about their pronunciation. But in addition, also because many students would reach out to other students for support or provide support to others, so they had to interact with each other, and that also helped. During the completing these assignments, they would also reach to me and ask if they can step out, if they can go to another part of the room. So they had to communicate with me as well. And also, when they will report the results, I would suggest them to practice a little bit more, or to just go and motivate them to do a little bit more. So they became more sociable because they would interact with me and interact with other students. And Raul, who was confident speaker and proficient reader, he actually learned how to read better and enunciate better with correct pauses as he sees the punctuation marks. His spelling actually improved because of the repeated exposure to the words and his need to pronounce the words correctly. And as the result of the access test, he actually exited the ESL program this year, as of this year. And my final, also, this program allowed me to promote the growth mindset, because I will show the students, okay, how many times did you practice? Now practice 2 more times, and they will see the increase in the results. Like, okay, guys, practice makes progress, and you can see it. And I would say, okay, you're so close. You have 68, 78, you're just 2% away. That means you one more word and you will get better. And usually they will get 10% more after next practice. So learning is doing, and practice make progress. And as the results for the access test we received for this year, I had 19 out of 27 improved in 9th grade, 13 out of 21 in 10th grade, and then 14 out of 29 in 11 and 12th grade as well. And for the first time on the test, each category of language proficiency, the maximum grade you can receive 6. So for the first time ever, one of the students received over 5 in speaking, which was beating all the records. So I'm so excited. Okay, thank you so much for your attention and for listening to me.
Thank you, Anna. Do we have any questions?